This thing is dark in Dallas, and it's going to get worse. This is going to be potentially a 90s type of disaster of a franchise in Dallas.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing after midnight on Thursday morning. Joining me from New York City is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, everybody.
Joining me from Sacramento, California, where he's at the site of Wednesday night's play-in between Dallas and Sacramento. We did this pod in two different pieces, and the second half of the piece, he'll have been in Dallas. But for this half, following the games tonight on Tuesday night, from Sacramento is Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners. It has been one hell of a day. Whole lot happening.
That's right. All right,
It's been a busy guy today.
Let's get right into it. The NBA playoffs have indeed started. We got a full-throated playoff game on Tuesday night between Golden State and Memphis, won at the end by Golden State. We also had a game in Orlando. Trae Young got ejected. The Magic finished very strongly. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference at a later time. We've got to focus on playoff Jimmy and
play-in Jimmy
and playoff Jimmy and just regular great Steph Curry. This was really, there was a lot going on in this game. A little bit too much officiating late. Both teams, I think, had points in the fourth quarter, which took it felt like 50 minutes to play the fourth quarter.
Well, it was a full 3-hour game in regulation. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. I think, too many whistles in general, but I don't know, generally it evened out. What really mattered here, Steph Curry made 4 or 5 tremendous plays down the stretch, 2 clutch 3-pointers, 4 clutch free throws. And I have to say, some amazing play without the ball on out of bounds plays in the final minute. He was being double teamed by the Grizzlies, as you'd expect, because he's one of the greatest free throw shooters of all time. He twice looked like an all-pro wide receiver getting open to get the ball to get fouls. And then I didn't quite understand, in basically the coup de grace of the game, I didn't understand why Steve Kerr had Steph Curry on the ball. He put Curry into the game to guard the ball in the inbound, Santi Aldama. The Grizzlies had an opportunity to hit a 3 to tie the game with 5 seconds left. Curry's leaping up and down in front of Aldama, who's got 6 inches, 7 inches on him.
Yeah.
And Aldama doesn't get the ball in. It's a 5-second call, although I'd like to see the counter on that. But
Aldama was so surprised Steph was in there. What's this guy doing? It took him 5 seconds to figure it out, and suddenly it's a violation.
Look, here's the whole story of this game, and it goes back to the week of the trade deadline. Mike Dunleavy chose to trade for his old teammate, Jimmy Butler. And it was to put Jimmy Butler together with Steph Curry. Here's their first playoff game together. Combined 75 points and 10 assists, going 25 for 31 from the foul line, and nobody else on the Warriors scored more than 12. Mm-hmm. It was a 2-man show, and those guys rocked and rolled their way through the game. And look, Memphis came back, made it a lot more interesting to look like being the first half, but this was the vision that the Warriors had, was these two guys can lead this team on a run through the playoffs.
Play-in.
And, well, yes, through the playoffs, bro. Now they're in the playoffs because they won today.
Okay.
And we'll see what happens.
Those stats disappear. Just poof, gone until
whatever on that.
That's fine. Fine. The point is, this is the version of Jimmy Butler the Warriors traded for. And over the last couple of weeks, when he has had games where he hasn't really been shooting the ball and hasn't been doing a lot, I was curious to see what version Jimmy Butler would show up in the playoffs.
I wasn't curious. I knew exactly.
I wanted to see if he could still dial it up like this. And in the first game, he dialed it up like this. And if he and Steph can play like this, the Warriors have a chance to win a couple rounds in the playoffs.
Well, and I guarantee you they'll head to Houston thinking they have the 2 best players in that series. Guarantee you that. They might be a 7 seed. The Rockets are a 2 seed. I'm curious to see what the odds are. But man, that one's got some juice to it. Like I said, I'm fired up to see Amin Thompson on Steph Curry. I'm fired up to see Steph Curry and have maybe another little chit chat with old Ime Udoka. They like to just pal around there right at midcourt from time to time. And Steph Curry has been haunting Houston Rockets fans come playoff time for a long, long time. The primary reason James Harden never got to a conference finals in Houston or to a finals in Houston is because his damn Golden State Warriors kept getting in the way.
So I thought Desmond Bane played a great game tonight for Memphis. He had 5 threes and he had 2 or 3 of them that rattled out. He very easily could have had more. Unfortunate for Memphis, which I mean, almost expected at this point that they would have an injury, because they always have injuries. It's just part of their MO at this point. John Morant turns his ankle nastily in the third quarter. I didn't get a clean look on the replay. Did it actually come down on Buddy Hield's foot, or did he
just tweaked it?
Yeah,
I think he just tweaked it.
I didn't get a good look either. I think it did, but I wasn't sure.
Well, they called a foul on Buddy Hield on the play, but the point is he turned the ankle very badly. He came back and played the last 7 or 8 minutes. He made a couple of baskets, but he was not a factor down the stretch of this game. He was clearly hobbled, and now you know that ankle's going to blow up, and they've got to fly for 4 hours. I don't know if they're going to fly tonight or if they're flying tomorrow, but whenever they're going to have to fly for 4 hours, and that ain't going to be good for that ankle. And now they got to play on Friday, and so I don't know what he's going to be.
I do have good news. They don't have to play a good team because the Memphis Grizzlies cannot beat a good Western Conference team. They've only been since January since they beat a plus 500 team in the Western Conference. They won't have to worry about that on Friday. The old mighty Mavs or them Kangs are coming, and I think the Grizzlies will be okay.
Well, listen, the Grizzlies twice in the last 5 days have had one of the elite teams in the West, in theory, Golden State and Denver, on the road in both games, up in the fourth quarter, both games, couldn't win either one. And that's going to be what defines their season. They win that game on Wednesday, or Friday, I should say, in Denver. They're a top 6 team in the West. And we'll see what their run looks like in the playoffs. They win this game today. They get a Houston team. They certainly would have gone into the series feeling like they could beat. Instead, they're either going home on Friday or they're drawing dead against Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And that really sums up their whole season. Just not quite enough.
On February 5th, they were the 2 seed. Actually, later than that. They took over the 2 seed on February 5th. They were the 2 seed as late as February 20th. Okay. When they fired Taylor Jenkins, they were tied for the 4 seed. Okay. They came in tonight as the 8. And they had a lead in this game. They've had some bad luck, but they've also let this slip through. And Ja's injury had obviously affected how they slipped from the 2 seed down.
Bad luck, sure, but they've been a pretty bad team.
Yeah, I know.
For months now. Like, really, dude?
Like, the last time they beat a Western Conference playoff team was on January 30th.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
And beat the Rockets.
They fired Taylor Jenkins when he did because Zach Kleiman looked at this and said, this thing's flaming out in the first round. And ain't nothing we've seen since then change your mind on that. That's for sure.
Well, it's something to watch on Friday. I think they're going to win the game on Friday. But if they don't win the game on Friday, Memphis Grizzlies traded a lottery-protected first-round pick to get rid of Marcus Smart back in February. So if they lose that game on Friday, they'll get the 14th pick in the draft. It's just something to watch in that game, see how it goes.
A couple of things about Golden State in this game. First off, they didn't get much help. Moses Moody hit a couple of shots, but they didn't get much help outside Butler and Curry, who, by the way, Butler and Curry combined for 31 free throws. Some of the fouls on Curry at the end were intentional, but that's an aspect of their game that they didn't have before. Also, they got out rebounded pretty heavily. I don't remember what the number was. I think it was around 20 by the Clippers.
It was 50 sorry. I thought you meant in this game.
Clippers on Sunday, they got it rebounded by around 20, and we saw Zubats have 17. In this game, Zach Edey had 17, and they got, as the Bontemps was saying, they got rebounded by 11.
50 to 39.
this is going to be a thing. They're at a rebounding deficit the way they play small. We saw Steve Kerr at times put multiple bigs out there. He went to Kevon Looney a little bit. In that next series, I think you're going to see Houston. Houston isn't huge, but
hey, dude,
I mean, they
hold on. Houston's been playing Şengün and Steven Adams together.
Right.
Houston can get big and physical. And
I don't know if they can play them together against this lineup, but I guess
there's a lot of non-shooters. Listen, there's a lot of non-shooters out there for the Warriors. I mean, Draymond Green, you don't even have to bother guarding him at this point. I mean, if they play Looney at all, you certainly have to worry about guarding him. Gary Payton, you saw tonight, the Grizzlies left him alone to shoot the ball. He had a couple shots, but like the Warriors, obviously Steph is the greatest shooter of all time, but there's some other guys you can hide guys on. And, MacMahon's around the Rockets all the time. We know how Ime Udoka wants to play. They're going to be big and physical and rough and tumble. And it's going to be like the game we saw 10 days ago when these two teams played. I mean, Tim mentioned Amen Thompson going up against Steph Curry. That game was also a physical rock'em sock'em robots game. And, if this becomes a physical rock'em sock'em robots series, that's not what the Warriors want. Not against this Rockets team.
Dude, they got Thompson to guard Curry. They got Brooks to guard Butler. Hey, the Warriors got two Hall of Fame dudes. I mean, really three, but two Hall of Fame offensive scores.
Yeah.
But they got some guys to match up.
They got some. Gonna be Rockets got some dudes for sure.
I think we're
find this dang we're looking at Adams combo. Go on.
We're looking at three pretty good-looking series in the West right now. I'm just going to tell you that. I mean, who knows what'll happen, but
they've only played 162 minutes this year. You want to guess what their net rating is in 162 minutes, Adams and Şengün?
Sure, it's good. I want to know what their offensive rebound rate is.
Okay, guess their net rating first, you bozo.
I'm trying to be expedient.
Plus 29.9.
Okay. What's their offensive rebound rate?
87. Seriously?
I don't
get this, though.
I'm not sure that's accurate.
51.4. They grab more than half of their missed shots when those guys are on the board together. They just bludgeon you on the boards.
Yes, that is the thing to watch. And we're going to see that lineup, I bet, in that series.
Pat Riley once said, no rebounds, no rings. So let's see how that plays out.
Smooth transition. Nico Harrison said 1,000 times that defense wins championships.
In Dallas today, before you flew out there on the Big Bird, MacMahon, you had a little meeting with Nico Harrison and Rick Welts. The floor is yours on how that went down.
Well, I would like to just assure everybody, there's a lot of concern. We did talk those Mavs PR folks out of not letting us record our own audio. That was a big point of contention. So we got to turn that little audio on, do a little transcribing, didn't have to wait for theirs to come out later in the day. Rick Welts wanted to chit-chat about those arena plans next decade. And gosh darn it, if the rest of us didn't want to talk about a trade.
Rick Welts is a Hall of Famer.
I would like to read the first question that was asked in this press conference today.
Okay.
Can I read it?
It was a good question. I don't know.
It was a good question.
You need me to sound it out for you?
No, it was by our colleague, Tim MacMahon. He was asked this question.
You have to read it because if I did, it might be too close to releasing the audio, which we agreed we wouldn't do.
I just want to read this question for the people at home who wonder about Tim MacMahon's reporting chops. This is the very first question asked at this press conference or whatever we're calling it.
This is like 15 minutes
intimate gathering.
All kinds of yeeping and yapping by Rick Welts and Nico Harrison.
Okay. Quote, you've got an outraged fan base. It's been outraged since the day you made the trade. The overwhelming majority opinion of your fan base is they want you fired. How do you respond to that? And why do you believe that Patrick Dumont should not take them up on that advice? I just would like to say that is a howitzer of an opening question I'm not saying it was an incredible question.
The hell else are you supposed to ask? I mean, let's get to it.
I'm giving you props, buddy. That's an unbelievable way to start this sucker off.
And he was, he was ducking and dodging and defense wins. Seriously, he said defense wins championships like 8 times. And it got to a point where I said, so the core of your finals team last year with Luka as a centerpiece couldn't continue to contend for titles? He said, I'll say it again. Defense wins championships. And he said, hey, you saw it. you saw that we put a championship caliber team on the court for 2.5 quarters. For 2.5 quarters, brother.
Crazy.
No, I watched a bleepity blappity finals run last year. That was a little bit more convincing than 2.5. I mean, I'm gonna cuss. 2.5 quarters.
I mean, here's the thing. We've been
biting
waiting.
My tongue here. I don't.
The last time we heard Nico Harrison talk, right, was the day after the trade was made in Cleveland at the little gathering with you and a couple other reporters in Cleveland, right? It's been 2.5 months since then. And all of that time, all the thinking about it, all the ways to try to come up with an explanation for the trade, I'd say it's fairly concerning.
There's no explanation.
There's no explanation.
He made a very clear statement. Regardless of everything that he has seen, regardless of the unfortunate outcome of Kyrie Irving tearing his ACL, regardless of Anthony Davis getting hurt 2.5 quarters into his first game, regardless of
Luka, when he rushed back too soon to try to get the world off of Nico's back, by the way. Go on.
Maybe.
No, maybe.
Regardless of the fact that Luka came back, wept on the bench, and then dropped 45 around fire Nico Harrison chants. Regardless of all that, Nico Harrison said, no regrets. Now,
but no logic.
Why did he have this press conference, Tim MacMahon?
Because Patrick Dumont made him. Because he was supposed to do it 2 weeks ago, and for some reason, he was able to push it back. He was supposed to do it before Luka came back to town.
And why did Patrick Dumont want him to have this press conference?
Because it has been the worst 2.5-month run of PR that I can remember in NBA history. And I got to tell you, it didn't get better today.
Nope.
How about poor Rick Wells? This dude's a Hall of Famer, but he's there to build the damn arena. He's there to get the arena.
Which I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will get a beautiful arena.
He got
built.
Chase Center done. Like the guy, like All-Star Weekends, Rick Wells, he's trying to put up a little shield for Nico. This man compared trading Luka to when the Warriors traded Monte Ellis and Joe Lacob got booed, to when the Suns traded Steph Marbury, to when the freaking Seattle Sonics, these are all teams he worked for, the Seattle Sonics traded 34-year-old Lenny Wilkins, no-time All-Star Monte Ellis on a team that hadn't been in the playoffs in years, 2-time third-team All-NBA Steph Marbury. No, this is a 5-time first-team All-NBA player entering his prime who's fresh off taking your team to the bleeping finals. Unprecedented and incredibly illogical.
Yeah, I mean, look.
And I know what he was trying. Look, I know what Rick Welts was trying to do. I
know what Rick Welts was trying to do too.
It was flimsy, but what he's trying to say is, trust us, is what he's trying to say.
Look, that's all well and good. When you make a move like this, right? If you make a controversial trade like this, you have to have an ability to explain why you did it. And the problem that the Mavericks have had from the moment the trade was made is that everything they've done since then has been as illogical as the trade. From immediately calling and spinning to our guy about why it was done 5 seconds after it was made, clearly knowing they were going to have to do that, all the way up to the bizarre way they handled Lucas showing up last week to this press conference today. None of it's made sense from the beginning. There's been no plan from the beginning. There's been no logical through line to it from the beginning. And reading through this transcript today,
dude,
it's clear sitting there. There's no ability to lay out a logical plan when, again, you could say, oh, well, defense wins championships. Well, as you pointed out, MacMahon, in your story, the Mavericks defense was just fine last year.
They were the number one defense in the league for the last 20
right.
games. And then
wasn't the problem.
In the finals, they couldn't score. By the way, if defense was such a problem, why was your big move of the summer signing Klay Thompson? So also,
that's right.
And now one thing Nico said was his trades generally have not received immediate good reviews, and most of them have worked out. He did succeed with the Kyrie trade. No question about that. The Daniel Gafford trade was a success. The freaking PJ Washington trade was an immediate success.
Well, the Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington trades were successes because Luka Doncic made them successes. Now
You're
Luka
damn
Doncic
right.
is not there.
And by the way, the Grant Williams trade, not so much. But in those 4 deals, you gave up 27, top 2 to Charlotte. 28, swapped to OKC. 29, it's now Houston's unprotected. 30, unprotected swap to the Spurs. I asked Nico about this, and he gave me a, can you repeat that?
This was a great exchange, by the way, when you asked him about this 4 different times.
Because I'm asking him, like, in your own words, you created a 3 to 4 year time frame in building the finals team. But you even went to the finals last season. You gave up your first round control in 27, 28, 29, and 30. So 3 to 4 years ends, you're out of your first round draft capital. How is that a logical decision? Explain the logic of that for the team's long-term best interest. He said, can you repeat that? So I repeated it and added a little bit more. And he said, I keep saying the same thing, but defense wins championships? Like, and then honestly, the rest of what he said here is ridiculous. He ends up with, it's a bunch of blah, 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 blah. But he ends up with, we're excited about the future of our team. I think once we win, then that will change your mind. Now, Christian Clark with The Athletic asked him a little bit later, hey, when those picks are due, do you envision yourself as a general manager? The man said, I've got 3 years left on my contract. I plan on finishing that. In other words, he ain't going to be holding the bag. This is what happens when you let somebody who's got a very short-term view make long-term decisions. Your franchise gets completely bleeped for the long term. This thing is dark in Dallas, and it's going to get worse. This is going to be potentially a 90s type of disaster of a franchise in Dallas.
Defense wins championships.
Well,
our guy Windy does love to point out defensive rating rankings for teams. So he and Nico clearly aligned.
Well, look,
and it was damn good for the Mavericks down the stretch last season into the playoffs. Here's the thing.
In all honesty,
I'm just having a little fun.
He should just throw himself and say, well, we have a devastating injury to our franchise point guard.
Well, and he did that. That's the 2.5 quarters thing, championship caliber team for 2.5 quarters, whatever. A 3 to 4 year time frame to get rid of the franchise player who just took you to the finals, entering his prime for a 3 to 4 year time frame when you owe all that draft capital is illogical. It is incredibly nonsensical. Also, this whole thing, he tried again to say, well, we didn't know if Luka was going to sign the Supermax. Like, dude, no, you don't get to do that.
That's not
bull crap. You don't.
Obviously, Luka was going to sign it. It was a matter of whether they wanted to offer it. But that's,
okay, so don't act like you didn't know if Luka was going to commit to you. Like that, you're not talking to us in good faith. You're playing us like absolute fools. You're playing your fans like fools, dude. Everybody watched Luka ball on the bench. The man was closing on his forever home in Dallas, and he was not going to leave that money on the table. You didn't want Luka long-term. You dumped him when, if you wanted to move him, not signing him with the Supermax was incredibly flawed logic. It's been terrible logic. It's been terrible results. It's been terrible PR. It is a terrible long-term situation in Dallas. Talking to a team source tonight, the noise is just too loud. You just can't sustain this. You're taking on water and you can't bail fast enough. Billionaires don't like to admit they're wrong, and this is a big thing to swallow. Patrick Dumont's got to look at this situation and try to figure out how the hell do we clean up this oil spill? Because you know what they did today? They sent Nico and Rick Welts out with brooms. Good luck with that, buddy.
Well, there was one other fairly amazing quote in here that I'm trying to find again, where Nico Harrison, who from day one has made it very clear that he is all in on Kyrie Irving. He might not have been all in on Luka Doncic. He sure as hell has been all in on Kyrie Irving. And as you said, the first thing you pointed out was that the Kyrie Irving trade was seen as a negative trade when he was trying to justify making this trade. I'm trying to find the quote in here where he was talking about.
Point out that Kyrie has the ability to opt out of his contract this summer.
Well, correct.
A whole lot of leverage still. I told you boys that.
What'd you say?
Listen, Nico.
Still got a whole lot of leverage. I don't care. I know. Look, he's probably not playing until late December at the earliest. Could be the All-Star break.
If he's playing by late December, I would like to congratulate him and the doctors because
I said at the earliest.
Well, listen, Nico putting out that statement when he got hurt, essentially saying we're going to have this guy here and it's going to be the greatest thing ever, pretty much underscored where his belief is.
There's a world where they're a playoff team next year, but they're not like, dude, this team ain't winning a championship, and it's a very short window, and then you're completely screwed after that. Honestly, Dumont completely screwed up by giving Nico no checks, no bounces, all the power in the world. And I asked him, hey, why? First of all, Dirk is completely turned off by this franchise. I'll have more on that coming out once they're eliminated. So probably Thursday morning. But like I asked, hey, why not seek Dirk's input? Why not seek Cuban's input? And he basically said, if they're not in the building, they don't know what's going on. Now,
I mean, that's true on its. I mean, that's.
Well,
on this one, I'll agree with them.
Stay tuned for why Dirk's not in the building, and the reason Cuban's not in the building is because Nico made sure he got his butt kicked out of basketball operations once that sale went through.
Beyond the logic of trading Luka Doncic, all right, he's staked this whole thing, franchise, his reputation, everything, on Anthony Davis, who is entering his 30s and has a litany of injuries across his CV over time. And Kyrie Irving, who also has a litany of injuries across his CV over time and literally just tore his ACL. So that is the foundation on which he is staking the flag that this thing is going to march forward into the future. And I again say
into the 3 years left on his contract. Let's just be clear.
Well, but I'm just going to point out, if you take him at his word, right, and you've got this window, I will again point out, if you're staking things on a 33-year-old dude who's got a torn ACL and Anthony Davis, to me, my expectation for this summer is that the Dallas Mavericks are going to make another big old swing at something. Because if you're not trading Anthony Davis, like I would argue they should, but they're clearly not going to, then you are probably going the other way and you're making another big swing with the limited assets of which they have left.
And I was talking to an executive today, and listen, everybody asks me about Nico's job security all the time. And all I can say is, to this point, Patrick Dumont has given him strong public support. I think this press conference could be considered proof that Patrick Dumont has some significant concerns. Duh. But this executive saying, man, I hope he makes another transaction cycle. It's always good to have a desperate GM out there.
Well, I just hope Kyrie's knee injury was successful because he had a terrible outcome of his last knee surgery when the hardware got infected and it ended up causing him all kinds of problems and was really bad. And he was,
and I'm not obviously rooting for the surgery to go badly either. It's the same thing as Daryl Morey on Sunday declaring that Joel Embiid is going to come back 100% next season.
I mean, you hope, and listen, Kyrie's incredibly skilled. Like, the guy's work ethic is phenomenal. Like, hey, you hope. It's a tough thing to base your whole franchise on, though.
I'm gonna hang that banner that says 2.5 quarters. All right, when we come back. All right, over the magic of television, editing, whatnot, we're now much earlier in the day. It's very early in the morning here on the West Coast. We're going to take a look. Oh, MacMahon's got his coffee. I hope you had by the way, MacMahon, I hope you had a good day. We're in this weird spot where people will have heard how this day went, and there's potentially crazy stuff that happened, plus between now and 3:00 today Pacific time, I have to do my ballot for the NBA awards. So that's a whole nother thing that will have been done by the time we're talking to you in reverse here. But
yeah, I might have been drinking something different in the A block. I don't know.
We'll see. It'll be a fascinating pivot. All right, but so we're going to look ahead to this weekend. We've got 4 series that are locked in, and I thought we would take a look at the Eastern Conference first. Bontemps, you are going to be at the Knicks Pistons game 1. starting this weekend. I have to say, I've got some Knicks fans in my life, and I'm really
Sorry for you.
I'm really trying to give them pep talks because the Knicks are a good team. They won 50 games. Jalen Brunson had an excellent year. Karl Towns had an excellent year. They are, in the midst of a renaissance of their organization. They won one playoff series for like 20 years, and they're favored to win a playoff series this year. I know they're not winning the championship, but it is not the end of the world. Are you going to share my pep talk for the Knicks fans, or are you going to continue to feel like the rest of the New Yorkers and be down on this team?
I mean, it is a funny thing because I am with you. I think the Knicks had the season everyone, I think, should have expected them to. They're the third best team in the East. They're one of the probably 6 or 7 best teams in the league. But they made these trades last summer. The expectation was they were going to kick on from where they were. They have not. They're, I think, 1-13 against the teams with the 5 best records besides them in the league. And now in the regular season, now they go into the playoffs, and there's all these doubts about how they're going to be able to do. Now, look, I think they're going to get steamrolled in the conference semifinals by Boston, which I think is where a lot of the pessimism comes from, is that everybody here is sort of resigned to the fact that that series isn't going to go well. Same time, there are also people who think they're going to lose to the Pistons. And I'm sorry, the Pistons have had a great season, fantastic season. As you mentioned, our ballots are due today, so we'll see. I got to sit down and write out my column for Thursday and actually make my votes. And I'm still not even sure if I'm going to vote for him or for JB Bickerstaff or Kenny Atkinson for Coach of the Year as of now. But a first-time Pistons roster making the playoffs with a bunch of guys who've never played in the playoffs are not going to beat the Knicks 4 out of 7 times and come into MSG and win. I've seen this script before. Not going to end well. So the pessimism about the Knicks winning this series, I think, is unfounded.
Well, this is what I would say. And certainly if there seems to be a second round ceiling on the Knicks, and I can understand the frustration from the fan base, perhaps from ownership after the offseason that they had, as aggressive as they were, of that being kind of the, not just the feeling, but seems like the fate. In this series, the Pistons are playing with house money. Are you kidding me? From 14 wins to a 6 seed, more than tripling their win total and all that. Young group. I mean, they can come in playing free, no pressure on them. Whereas the Knicks,
do you think there's no pressure on them though? I mean, like that's
on the Pistons. No, first, nobody expected them to be a
well,
player.
yeah, but I would just say players, and look, so they have guys who have. Well, I don't want to get in your way. Go ahead, MacMahon. I'll stop.
We don't interrupt on this podcast. You know that.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay, maybe the playoff lights will be bright or whatever, but they're playing with house money. I think we can all agree with that. Whereas the Knicks are playing with a ton of pressure on them because of the expectations, because of, look, the Knicks just kind of have an inherent pressure that very few other franchises in the league have because of the market, because of, the franchise history. And honestly, I think there's a lot of pressure on Tibbs in particular. A first round exit would be very, very interesting and a potential franchise shifting type of development. I don't think it would happen. I'm just saying, though, I feel like one team's playing with house money and one team's got the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Well, I would agree with you there. If the Knicks were to lose in the first round, then this entire conversation would have a different vibe to it.
And I will agree. They certainly should not be losing to this Pistons team.
But I will say that, I think part of it is that the last 2 times these teams played, the Pistons won. Now, the game last week, I think Josh Hart and OG Anunoby sat out that game. They played in January.
PJ Tucker played 27 minutes in that game.
Right.
Last week. That's all I'm going to say about that game.
That's right. 27 more than he played.
That's right.
3 years combined.
That's right. That's the only thing you have to say about the relevance of that game.
How many pairs of shoes did he wear?
Probably more than one.
All right, we're interrupting Wendy. How rude of us.
Yeah.
Go on.
Anyway, I do think that there will be some, just because I've been around teams that are making their first playoff runs together. I think the Pistons will have jitters. And I know that, Tobias
especially
Harris
at MSG.
Right. And I know Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. have been around a while. But, Cade Cunningham and Azur Thompson and Jalen Duren, this is going to be new for those guys. And so I think the Knicks have the advantage. They have a team that is a veteran team that has a lot of playoff experience. They get to start the series at home.
And Jalen Brunson's a proven postseason performer.
Big time. Is he the best player in this series?
Yes. Cade Cunningham is going to make my NBA team. I have not laid out my specific ballots yet in terms of which team or whatever. But yeah, Jalen Brunson had, I believe, 4 straight games of 40 points or more in the playoffs last year.
No, and even going back to obviously his last playoffs in Dallas, that is a dude who is absolutely unfazed by playoff. But matter of fact, I would say he rises to the occasion repeatedly in these situations, going back to his days at Villanova.
Well, one thing I am mildly interested in, maybe I shouldn't assume this, but one of the things that the common game plan against the Knicks is, especially late in the playoff game, is you put big defenders onto Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's faced this since he was in college. So it's not like, but I would guess that late in these games, you're going to see Ausar Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Put onto Jalen Brunson.
I'm excited to watch these Thompson twins in the playoffs because we'll see how things play out. The other Thompson twin, I think, is going to have a heck of a matchup. And by the time this pod comes out, we'll know what that'll be. But yes, Ausar, I think, will be a big, big factor as far as how the Pistons attempt to defend Jalen Brunson.
And by the way, Ausar Thompson, the second half of the season, if you look up, I'm just looking up his post All-Star numbers. There might even be a better set of numbers to look at. But after the All-Star break, he averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He doesn't shoot the ball well. His outside shot is not good, just like his brothers. But he did shoot 52% from the field overall. So
two of the top 1% type of athletes in the league, and they're competitive as hell.
Yes. So, that is something that, look, if it's a close, Bontemps, I agree with you. Jalen Brunson's history of, frankly, his calmness. And I mean, he's very strong candidate to win clutch player of the year.
Cojones factor player of the year.
Is there a Cojones factor player of the year? I couldn't remember. And when is that awarded? Is that awarded based on the regular season, or should we expect that now?
Well, it's a lot of pressure. I'm not prepared.
Well, I don't mean in this podcast, but I can't remember our.
Well, here's the thing: if you're doing Cojones factor player of the year, you got to factor in playoffs because that's when them Cojones.
That's what I would think. That's what I would think. All right. Anyway, I agree with Bontemps that Jalen Brunson is built for these moments, but there will be a new guy to defend him down the stretch of this game, and we'll see. And also, that's actually what I'd like to see. I'd like to see some pressure. I'd like to see how Cade handles it. And I know
it's going to be an awesome experience for those guys. Like you said, for Cade, for Ausar, for Jalen Duren, all these young guys, going to be a great learning experience for him. And I mean, Cade's had an absolutely phenomenal year, and it's going to be great to see him on this kind of stage and see what he can do.
Yeah, I was talking to an executive who works for one of the teams that's in one of the play-ins. I don't want to say more than that. 1 of 8 teams. And I was talking to him about, what about this? Would you want this route? Would you want that route? And he was like, honestly, I just want to see how our guys adapt. I don't care whether we play team A or team B. I want to see how our young guys handle this. And, we're not winning the championship this year. So I want to put this in this position. And I would say the same thing about the Pistons.
I'd say the same thing about the Rockets, and they're a 2 seed.
Yes, fair enough. Yes. Fair enough. Yeah. So, although Dylan Brooks probably thinks it's going to be 4-4-4-4.
He does not lack confidence.
Anyway, MacMahon, you picked. What did you pick this series?
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember. I think I probably picked Knicks in 6. I feel like it's something I think the Pistons will put up a fight. the Knicks obviously are much further along, much more experienced. So I do think it'll be the Knicks win. I don't think it's going to be a cruise through to the second round, though.
I did notice that everybody, I don't pick and Bontemps doesn't pick. I brought Bontemps over to my side.
I mean, I will make picks on the series. I just haven't made them yet.
Oh, okay. Well, the ones that published on ESPN.com was a clean sweep for the Lakers over the Timberwolves, and I already saw Wolves Twitter. Their backs were up, so the annual tradition is already getting going. All right, the other East series that we know, and a series that I think has a potential to be a bit spicier is Bucks and Pacers. There is no formal update on Damian Lillard. I think it's responsible to believe that Dame is not going to play in this series. I don't 100% know that, but I just think if I were the Pacers, I would be preparing for him not to play in the series. And if I were the Bucks, I would say the same thing. But unless there was a comment that I missed from Doc Rivers, I don't think they've officially said that. But I would. That's certainly the way I'm looking at it. I'll just leave it at that. And these teams have some history dating back to last year. The Pacers have had a lot of success.
Oh yeah, they got some history.
The Pacers get to home court in this series, which I think is pretty valuable. I'm on the belief that beating the Pacers 4 out of 7 is going to be hard. I would not project them getting past the second round. I think this series could go either way. I think the Pacers will probably win it, but I did think it could go either way because of how phenomenal Giannis has been down the stretch. The thing about this MVP vote is Giannis has 2 MVPs and can hold up this season and say, this is my best season. How dare you not vote for me?
Exactly.
And Jokic has 3 MVPs and he can hold up this season and say, this is my best season. How dare you not vote for me? And both of them can have a point.
And Shea can hold up his season and say, this is a historic season for a guy who is leading a 68-win team, and he's probably going to get the award. I mean,
yes.
But yes, Giannis, we can absolutely positively say Giannis has had an MVP caliber season, and he is playing as well as he ever has. It's not the same level of, especially without Dame, but even with Dame, it's not the same level of supporting cast that he had certainly when the Bucks won a title. And again, when you talk about pressure on a team going into the playoffs, it's awfully high on the Milwaukee Bucks for a wide variety of reasons.
I don't know,
no
Bontemps.
question.
Do you think the Bucks have, because Dame, I mean, the reality is the reality. The clock is the clock. The Bucks are the underdogs here because Dame's not playing. Yeah, you can say whatever you want, and
might have been underdogs with him playing.
People, if/when the Bucks lose, we're going to have a whole layer of like, oh my gosh, what about Giannis? They're hurt. They're hurt. Like their second best player is out in a skin tight series. Like, what? I mean, what do you? It's bad luck. What are you supposed to say?
Well, and Giannis was out. Whatever.
Yes, I know.
Year, and we can go on
agree.
back. And by the way, oh my God, what about Giannis has become an annual conversation in the new book, The Wonder Boy, available at all.
Wonderful.
All places you can buy books these days. The draft that the Mavericks had, Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, and the last pick of that draft, Kostas Antetokounmpo, because they were trying to position themselves to, when Giannis was going to shake free, they were trying to position themselves to be in the Giannis Derby. So that's how far back this annual what about Giannis conversation goes. At some point, especially this year, if they're bouncing the first round, does it finally happen? I don't know, but that's the kind of pressure the Bucks are feeling. And again, if they're bouncing the first round again, I don't know what the changes will be, but I do believe there will be significant changes in Milwaukee.
I mean, look, this series is very simple. The Pacers are the much better team talent-wise, and the Bucks clearly have the best player. And both those things are not really disputable.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a series that comes down to which of that equation is going to win out. Is Giannis going to continue to go for 40, 17, and 10 a game, which is feels like what he's been doing basically every game, and the Pacers really have no ability to stop him from doing that? Or are the Pacers, with the way that the pace they play at, amount of threes they get up, the way their offense gets going, are they going to be able to, just overwhelm him with the amount of offensive production they could put up and the overall talent they've got? That's the whole series. And I'll probably lean the Pacers' way just because I don't think the Bucks have really that much of ability to slow anything down that they're doing over 7 games. But, Giannis has just had an incredible season, and there's a massive gap between him and the second best player in the series. And, we'll see if that's enough for Milwaukee to tip it the other way. But 3 years in a row losing in the first round, whatever the circumstances around it, would certainly cause a lot of discussion.
I agree.
The Bucks need Giannis to have 4 game ball worthy sort of performances in this series.
Yep.
So in the games that Giannis has played since Dame went down, his stats across the board are the same as they are in their game. 30 points, shooting 60%, gets 12 rebounds. The difference is since Dame went down, he's averaging 9 assists a game because he's playing point guard. I mean, this is a guy.
He's playing everything. He's point forward center.
Yes.
He's playing everything.
And having covered some LeBron series where he's carried some teams, doing everything, leading them in every category, it can be done. But the strain is enormous.
Especially against a team like the Pacers, where put your track spikes on. You're going to be running up and down. It's going to be a high speed, up tempo type of series. They're going to spread you out. This is it. Giannis is capable, but boy, is this a big challenge.
Yeah, and one of the things that Rick Carlisle does is he knows how to coach for a whole series. Rick Carlisle has strategies that are designed for 7 games. And I saw that last year in the Knicks series. And they obviously benefited from the Knicks getting injured, but part of it was the Pacers wore them down. So that's the Pacers strategy. The Pacers strategy in every series, no matter who they're playing. I don't care if they are playing the Jazz. Their strategy would be to wear down to wear down the opposition. And so they will do that in a myriad ways. The speed of the game, the rotation that they play, all of those things. The other thing is Pascal Siakam had put up huge numbers against the Bucks this year. He's a hard cover anyway, but he's a particularly hard cover for the Bucks. Halliburton actually did not play well against the Bucks this year, relatively to his standard. He didn't put up numbers. It was really Siakam who carried him in those games. Which, by the way, the Bucks won 3 of them. So it's hard to evaluate all that because you have to go back and analyze who was in and who was out. But Halliburton, played all 4 of those games. In the game that they won, I think Aaron Nesmith, who was not there for I think 2 of the games, was a big factor. So Nesmith is an X factor in that series. He's both he and Andrew Nembhard were very important in their playoff run last year. They played key roles. Obviously, you're going to watch Halliburton, you're going to watch Siakam, but Miles Turner, obviously his role is elevated in this series because the Bucks play a little bigger. But you want to get a real feel on whether the game is going the Pacers' way or not. Call up the box score and look at Nesmith and Nembhard, because those are guys who they defend. But if they're able to get out in transition and they got their shot going, that really elevates the way the Pacers play. Let's take a look at the Western Conference series that we know are going to be in place. I am going to practice a speech here right now.
Ooh.
As you guys know,
Clear out.
sometimes I workshop things on the podcast before I roll them out on television, even though this show is on television. We've got some jobs open in the NBA, head coaching jobs. And I'm starting to see names of coaches, candidates for coaches. And I have yet to see, unless I missed it, I have yet to see Jeff Van Gundy's name.
Ooh.
And Jeff Van Gundy, is, at this point in his career, is not looking for attention. And so he won't seek it. And I have a personal relationship with him. He was my colleague at ESPN for 14 years. Did
we stop working here?
Well, he stopped working.
No, I'm making a joke about you being on a podcast with us. We're also colleagues with Jeff Van Gundy. That's
Well,
yeah,
of
but
course,
he didn't talk
yeah.
to me. He talked to me.
I'm
You
making.
talk to me
I'm
too. Jeff's
I'm
great.
Let
I'm
Wendy
on the
cook.
soapbox. I'm on the soapbox.
Firing. Let him cook.
You know, we were
Just having a little fun.
We were fortunate enough to have 3 Clippers on the Hoop Collective this season. We had Norman Powell, we had James Harden, and we had Ivica Zubats.
No, Ivica Zubats. There's only one I. Right an I before
Ivica Zubats. I need like a psychology
Get
on this
back
word.
to your Van Gundy stuff. You can pronounce
all
Jeff
3 of them. All 3 of them, when they came on our pod, praised the role that Jeff Van Gundy played in that team this year. I went to a bunch of Clippers games this year, up and down the line as I was talking to people with the Clippers. JVG, JVG, JVG. And obviously and by the way, Tyronn Lue, for bringing Jeff Van Gundy into the team and having a very strong lead assistant who he gave a lot of responsibility to as well. From day one, I do not know why. First off, Jeff Van Gundy, the Clippers just in general underrated. Ty Lue's job this year is underrated. Some of their players' performances are underrated, although they're going to be well represented, I think, on my ballot. Jeff Van Gundy's role is underrated.
Yeah, and look, Ty Lue is a championship coach, one of the best coaches in the league. Credit to him for bringing in a guy who's been the head coach at multiple spots and entrusting him and empowering him as much as he did, where he said, hey, run our defense. And damn, has that defense run well. And also, like, they've made some nice moves. Getting Chris Dunn was one of the great under-the-radar offseason transactions. Bringing back Batum.
And you remember they did it in a sign and trade that they waited. It was the Russell Westbrook's sign.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, they waited a long time. It was a 3-team sign and trade, right? That ended up happening. Like I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Dunn agreed to go to the Clippers, and then he had to wait.
Yeah.
It might have been like 6 days, but it might have felt like 6 weeks to me, the way free agent. He had to wait like a really long time for it to get worked out. And obviously, they brought in Derek Jones Jr.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a really important signing. Anyway, Clippers have the series against the Nuggets. It's a high leverage series. MacMahon, why didn't you get yourself assigned to that series? If I was out west, I would want to be on that series.
Well, quite frankly, I'm hoping for an OKC sweep so I can come home and watch like games 5, 6, and 7 of that on my couch and hang out with the wife and kids.
Man, I'm very excited to watch that one. We've talked about the Nuggets all year, talked about the Nuggets a lot, but the Clippers are impressive. And I don't know what's going to happen in that series. Kawhi has been great. Look, guys, let's just be honest. The last 2 years, Kawhi has looked really good at the beginning of the first round playoff series, and then he hasn't finished the series.
No, last year he didn't. Last year he was banged up. He was hurt.
Yeah, last year he looked bad.
That's right. He looked great during the regular season last year.
Last year, I covered the series. I should remember fresh, but he didn't play much. And then when he did play, he didn't play game 1. He came back for game 2, and he just disrupted things. He wasn't himself. It kind of gummed things up. Now the guy's playing, I'm not going to say the best basketball of his career, but he's playing at an all NBA level, no question about it. And this is a team that's got a lot of momentum going in the playoffs, whereas the Nuggets are a team that just underwent, obviously, we're talking about the pressure on these other franchises. They got ahead of it. They made their massive organizational changes, and I think you've got a championship core of Nuggets who want David Adelman to be their long-term head coach, and they're playing to try to ensure that happens, as well as obviously trying to compete for another title.
Yeah, I mean, is Kawhi Leonard going to be playing at the end of the series? Like, I don't know. It's the last 3 years. I think even going by the last 2 years, I think even beyond that, he hasn't finished the playoffs healthy. So, if he can make it through this series healthy, the Clippers can absolutely win it. But it's hard for me to sit here right now and pick the Clippers as much as I'm tempted to, because I just feel like, unfortunately, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop on Kawhi. And they have been unbelievable the last few months. Everything you said on JVG is 100% right, Brian. Joe Mazzulla gave him a ton of credit for the help he did as a consultant with the Celtics last year, too, when he got back in a little bit before he went to the Clippers. I'm going to vote Zubac for Defensive Player of the Year. He's obviously played great this season, but Van Gundy's been engineering a lot of the stuff they've done.
You heard him on the pod. Zoo was giving credit to Jeff. I didn't say, hey, how's Jeff doing? He brought him up, just to be clear.
But yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Denver to win the series for 2 reasons. One, I think it's probably going 7, and they have home court in Game 7.
Fair.
And 2, they have Nikola Jokic, who's still the best player on the planet, and I think they're going to find a way to pull this series out. But I'm really excited to watch it, because I think it's going to be the best series of the first round, and it could go either way. And I just hope we're talking a couple weeks from now about, there being a Game 7 that final weekend, and you've got Nikola Jokic against a healthy Kawhi Leonard, and let's see who wins. It'd be great.
I don't know who's going to win, but man, did the Clippers impress me with that win in Golden State. So let's leave it at that. All right. The other one is, I can't remember. What is the other series?
Probably the NBA TV series.
Yeah, the NBA TV. I don't think we're going to talk much about who are the Timberwolves playing. I don't think we're going to be talking much about it on ESPN. I don't even remember. I think they're playing a little team in LA.
It's the old Minneapolis. The battle for Minneapolis. Minneapolis Lakers.
Yeah. By the way, there's only a few teams left that LeBron has not played in the postseason, and the Timberwolves are one of them. He's played playoff games in 24 or 25 NBA cities.
You know who has played the Timberwolves in the playoffs?
Luka Doncic. I seem to recall you and I last year in Minneapolis.
He hasn't played Houston, has he? Neither, LeBron?
There's 4 teams he hasn't played. He hasn't played Miami or Cleveland in the East. Oh, take it back. He did play. Did they play Miami once? He hasn't played Miami or Cleveland.
Well, he might cross off 3 of them this year. It might be Minnesota, Houston, and then a couple rounds later, Cleveland. We'll see.
Who knows?
That's some ESPN Lakers exceptionalism for you.
Sure is.
Yeah, that's some
Lakers and Cavs exceptionalism right there.
We've got a new colleague here at ESPN. Marcus Morris is doing some TV, and they love him at ESPN because he's brash. He's not afraid to say stuff, and he loves the Lakers' chances. Boy, do they love that at ESPN.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. So to me, there's no reason why Ant Edwards shouldn't be jumping at the starting gates, licking his lips, saying, I want to feast. Because look, let's be honest. The Lakers don't have great perimeter defense, and they don't have great basket defense. And I know Ant is a 3-point shooter now, but Mr. Edwards, and let's just be honest. The Lakers can score. and Luka is going to pressure them. He's going to stress them out if they try to switch and put Gobert on him. LeBron is going to
try to switch and put anybody on him. I mean, right. Gobert might actually be one of the better matchups for him. But but there's so much footage.
There's much footage from, and not even just the shot where he,
and by the way,
you can't guard me.
Jaden McDaniels is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. He has like everybody else, He has a really hard time with Luka, but especially him because Luka is just so much stronger than him. And he can just move him wherever he wants to take him.
I remember watching those games. Did we sit next to each other or was I texting you?
You've never sat next to me in your entire life.
I remember watching game 1.
Who could blame him?
I remember watching game 1 and I either was saying when you were sitting next to me or I was texting you. My God, is Luka manhandling Jaden McDaniels, and my God, is Luka getting toasted on defense. It's like two things that I remember sitting there watching, going, "Boy, Luka's got like 17 points in the first quarter, and he's given up 22."
Yeah. Now I will say this in defense of the Timberwolves, they entered that series completely gassed. They entered that series like 48 hours fresh off of that incredible Game 7 comeback in Denver. And Kyrie in particular really came flying out of the gates and took advantage of a fatigued team. They're obviously, going to enter this series fresh. And obviously they're not playing the Mavericks, playing a totally different team. But one thing that is true about the Lakers in every single series that they could play is they're going to have at least 2 of the 3 best players in the series. And in this one, they're going to have 1 and 3? Are we saying Ant's better than LeBron? I'm not sure. Maybe 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Ant's role is bigger than LeBron's role, and that's by design. You don't want LeBron to have that kind of usage. But they need Ant to be the best player in the series, or at least they need him to be the best player 4 times. Yes, there could be a situation where you see somebody get very hot, like Dante DiVincenzo could, I saw it last year, and he could have a game where he hits 8 threes and is a tipping point. Then again, so could Dorian Finney-Smith. But I'm having a hard time seeing how Minnesota's doing this unless Ant just carries them home a few times.
Well, and the Lakers just flat out have significantly more firepower, and the biggest war, like we talk about Lakers perimeter defense and all this stuff, they've done a great job masking that. When you look at their defensive numbers over the second half of the season, the biggest wart either of these teams have is the Timberwolves just really struggle closing games and especially protecting a late lead. If it's close down the stretch, massive odds that the Lakers are able to pull it out.
I'm not good. I'm not an X and O guy, and so maybe Bontemps is better at it than me. I also think, obviously, the Wolves have a size advantage, and if they want to go super big, they can stress the Lakers out. Naz Reid, I think, will be an important player in this series. He needs to have a good series as well. Bontemps, don't you think that the Lakers can hide LeBron a little bit defensively, whether it's on Gobert, whether it's on Jaden McDaniels?
But he's a third guy they need to hide.
Well, I agree.
But
the energy, the guy they have to worry about his energy is LeBron. That's whose energy you're saving for these fourth quarters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the Lakers have. I mean, this is a fascinating series, like we talked about a little bit the other day, because of the stylistic challenges on both sides. Like, I would argue the biggest word in this series could easily be the fact that the Lakers have absolutely no size, and
they don't have center size.
They have no size. Yes, okay. In the paint, they have Jackson Hayes, and then they're playing Dorian Finney-Smith at center. They have no size. They have positional size across the board, as we talked about a bunch. But even in that Mavs-Lakers game the other day, when the Mavs had nobody who could really dribble on the court, they were still getting all sorts of dunks in the paint, right? Because they had a lot of size, and they could attack the glass, and the Lakers really had no hope of doing anything about it. Now, the Lakers won the game because Luka hit 1 billion shots. And the Lakers might do that 4 out of 7 times in this series. They could easily win the series. You mentioned the way the Wolves can implode down the stretch in games. If you got Luka and LeBron, you're probably going to make pretty good decisions and getting pretty good looks late in games. We've talked about Anthony Edwards' decision-making in these games. He's got to be better. The Lakers have absolutely nobody who can guard Anthony Davis or Anthony Edwards. Mm-hmm. He should be able to get to the rim whenever he wants. And
they have nobody that can guard Anthony Davis either.
They don't. And
I don't think that'll be an issue in the playoffs.
That will not be an issue in this series, though. And look, like you said, Brian, Ant's got to be 1A with Luka for them to win the series. Like, he's got to be that good. he's got a chance to be that good. He can be that good, but he's got to be that good.
He was 1A against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker last year. That's damn sure.
Yes.
Now, but as far as LeBron conserving energy, he does have the luxury of being able to kind of coast and be a complementary piece offensively for the first 3 quarters. Not just because of Luka, which Kyrie benefited from greatly last year, helped him be maybe the best closer in the league, but also like you can put the ball in Austin Reeves' hands. Austin Reeves has had it in the second half of the season. If the second half was the first half, Austin Reeves would have been an all-star. That's how good he's been.
Well said.
Well, and I'm also just going to say, I know we work for ESPN, so therefore we are pro Lakers all the time because that's what we do. But
especially you,
the Lakers this year were 14th in net rating, outscored teams by about a point per 100 possessions. Minnesota was 4th, outscored teams by 5. Well, I'm just saying they outscored teams by 5 points per 100 possessions. They were 4th in the league at point differential. The Lakers were 14th. They outscored by 300 points over the course of the season. So I'm not saying that there's that kind of gulf between the teams. The Lakers would tend to either win close or lose big, and the Wolves would sort of do the opposite. My point is just that the narrative going into this series is going to be that Minnesota's a massive underdog. I don't really see that being the case at all. It's a nip and tuck series that I think the Lakers should be favored to win because of the foibles we've seen from Minnesota late in games in particular. But this is a very tricky matchup for them because of a series of, I think, pretty clear strengths in the Wolves' favor. It's a question of whether the Wolves can lock in and take advantage of that or if they'll shoot themselves in the foot too much.
We have a little bit of house cleaning here at the Hoop Collective. To go back to some preseason stuff that we did, we had 2 sets of, I don't make predictions, so I don't know about that, but we had our wins pool way back in October. I think we went through our snake draft, which I fumbled like Ivica Zubac's first name.
Oh, that's much better.
As I always fumble the snake draft, but we picked our teams with the wins pool. So I think Bontemps has been keeping track of that. He could totally make, for the record, I have no idea. I have no memory of who I picked.
I remember who I picked.
He could be like, "Yep, guys, I won by 37 games." I'd be like, "Darn." And we have to settle the Spurs bet. But so first, Bontemps, do you have the results of the wins pool?
Here's all everybody needs to know about the wins pool. Brian, out of nowhere, last night says, "Hey, got to do the wins pool."
I have no memory of who I picked.
Here's all. I don't even need to go through. I finished 3rd. MacMahon finished 2nd. Brian finished 1st. You knew Brian. Oh,
Bontemps like the Bulls in a 3-way trade.
You knew Brian won when he brought this up. All I'm going to say is the final 2 picks Brian had were the Pistons and the Blazers.
Damn.
That's how you win. That's how you win a win.
Yeah, the Pistons. That's a big
My final 2 picks were the Hornets and Wizards. Brian's were the Pistons and Blazers.
I think that's all you have to say.
I finished 3rd and Brian finished 1st. The end.
I had the Jazz, huh?
You had the Jazz.
But did I not have also the Cavs and the Thunder?
I had the Thunder with the first pick, but you had the Cavs. You didn't have a single team with under 34 wins, and the only one you had under 40 was the Spurs at 34, which won me our bet.
Wait, hold on, Spurs only won 34. Damn.
Yeah.
that was cool. How Bontemps was like, "Yep, I finished 3rd." Which, by the way, I won the Spurs.
If you go through. Well, yes, I did. But it's not really a debate. It hasn't been a debate for a while. I will say, if you go through your picks, Wolves, Knicks, Cavs, Magic, Pacers, Kings, Hawks, Spurs, Blazers, Pistons. It's pretty good to have. Well, I guess the Pistons were under 40, or the Blazers were under 42. It's pretty good to have 8 teams with 40 or more wins and all 10 with at least 34.
Well,
that's how you win.
I probably picked the Pistons under duress. I probably said 3 sentences about them, if that. So
hey, if JB doesn't get your Coach of the Year vote after winning the wins pool, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, there was no skin in that game. That was a friendly game. But there was skin in the game for you, MacMahon.
All right, listen here. I've informed you guys of the clause that was in the fine print about Wemby had to play a minimum of 50 games. For what was it? Spurs over 35.5 was the bet.
That was the bet.
They landed at 34, but the bet was void because of Wemby's minimum games clause. Now,
sure.
I am well known to be one of the nicest guys in the media business.
Yes, you are.
Everybody could agree with that.
Everybody.
And so
everybody can agree.
Listen, plus I give Bontemps a hard time. I want to make this right. So what I'm willing to say is if I sell enough copies of The Wonder Boy, Luka Doncic, and The Curse of Greatness, here. If I sell enough copies of this thing and I'm collecting royalties past the advance, I will use the first royalties check to take Bontemps out to a dinner at, we can go back. You want to come down to Nick and Sam's in Dallas?
I'm just glad we've gotten to the point where I won the bet.
Listen, the Luka is still on the menu. A 77-ounce steak will always be on the menu. My man Sam has guaranteed that.
Here's all I'm going to say about this
royalty
bet.
checks kick in.
Here's all I'm going to say about this bet. This began in the fall when MacMahon started wilding out about the Spurs, saying they're going to go over 500, they're going to do this, they're going to do that.
40 wins.
And I said, hey, all right, but you really believe in the Spurs? They're going to be over 500. They're going to be in the playoffs mix. Let's make a bet that they're going to win more than half their games. And this guy was Usain Bolt running away from that all season ever since. So the fact that I still won after he dropped it by 6 games, I will happily take the win.
All right. Well, Chris Paul was trying to make it happen for you, MacMahon. He played in all 82 games.
By the way, shout out to Chris Paul. Yes. Year 20, playing all 82 games. God bless, man. That was awesome.
That honestly is an absolutely amazing feat. I don't know how much more basketball Chris Paul has left, but to do that in year 20 is just, another incredible accomplishment in a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, unbelievable.
MacMahon, you are off to Sacramento to see Sacramento and the Mavericks play in the play-in on Wednesday. Then you're going where?
A big fat TBD. I got a one-way ticket. I anticipate that I'll be back in Memphis. We'll actually stick around for the game if that's the case on Friday night. If the mighty Mavs manage to make it through and the Warriors slip, I'll just slide right on over to the Bay. Oh. And if it's Kings Warriors, well, we'll know by the time this comes out. We'll know. We'll at least know where it is. So either Memphis or Golden State perhaps might be able to come home if it's a little Kings Warriors action.
When Bontemps was living in San Francisco, he would drive back and forth. And, I don't know if you know this, but Bontemps has a little bit of a lead foot. I think after a Kings game, he got me from Sacramento to San Francisco in like an hour and 5 minutes.
He drives like he talks, huh? No regard for anybody else. And
it's not actually how this trip went, but it's always been apocryphally turned into. I drove 1,000 miles an hour.
What was it turned into?
Apocryphally. It's a big word.
All I know is that like my butt wasn't even warm in the seat, and we were about to go over the Bay Bridge. I was like,
everybody was just having a nice time hanging out, and the time flew. Jason Lloyd and Joe Varden and me and Brian driving back from Cavs Kings back in the
Nobody was having a good time if Jason Lloyd and Joe Varden were in the car. I can assure you of that.
Back headed for I believe that was Cavs Warriors MLK Day game.
Where was Mac 10? There was only 2 of the 3 amigos.
I don't think Mac 10 was present in the car. I think it was just me, Joe, and Brian.
He doesn't hang out with us. All right.
He was probably flying to get segments.
You're probably right. He probably flew from Sacramento to San Francisco via
LA.
Yeah. As will I if need be.
Yeah.
All right. Bontemps will be at the Knicks opener over the weekend. Is that on Saturday?
Saturday at 6, I think.
All right.
So the game before the one game we'll recognize on Saturday, Lakers Wolves at 8:30.
I'm headed to Cleveland for the start of whoever they play on Sunday.
Cavs corner, baby. Cavs corner, it's here.
I haven't been to a Cavs playoff game since 2018. So it's been a while.
Return of the King.
Several.
I know you've been to like I haven't been to a Cavs game this year. You've been to like 9. All right. Thank you very much. By the way, while you're promising royalties, that book came out in 2017. Actually, 2016.
Why do you think he's promising royalties? Are you telling the listeners this?
2017.
His fake attempt to pay
it
off
made the New York Times bestseller list. Thank you for all the people who bought it. It continues to sell, and I have not made any money past the advance. So, you'll get
the
your
advance was big old fat.
Yeah. Well, you did fine too. All right. Thank you for watching Hoop Collective. Thank you to Jackson, who played hurt through this podcast. Our producer, Jackson Agello. Thank you to MacMahon. Thank you to Bontemps. Thank you for watching, listening. We'll talk to you later this week.
Adios, amigos, and by the books.